how do you go in and talk to these people with really like a service mentality of like, hey, we're going to be very successful. We are going to be a very premium brand, and going in with this level of confidence is so important. Otherwise, like, why would they align themselves with you, the new guy who has no clients, no nothing, whatever? So I think your confidence as the business owner of going in there and establishing those relationships is really important.
Laurel, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Look at you in your backyard.
Yes. Yes.
What's the weather like in sunny Scottsdale today?
It's hot this week. I think it's in the 90s, but it's been a little cloudy, so kind of perfect. But
You know what
we've
they
been
say, it's a
outside.
dry heat.
I mean, I've been in Atlanta, and when like in the humidity or whatever, I would take this all day long.
I
So
would too. I'll take 110 in the desert over
yes,
90 in the swamp any day of the
yes,
week. I agree.
exactly.
Everybody that comes here, they're like, "Ugh," their hair gets stuck everywhere. And
You've got
it's
short
just a
hair.
whole.
It's not good for us with long hair.
Yeah, mine doesn't change a lot, surprisingly. It really
Yes.
doesn't. Look, I wanted to have you on. Obviously, we think highly of you. You're a Alloy franchisee with multi-units coming, one open now, more coming in the future. But you do have one specific skill that I want to talk about today, which, I don't want to bury the lead. So we are going to talk about community-based marketing and B2B promotion, business to business promotions. But I'd love to hear about your background. I know our audience would love to hear more about your background before we get started. So who is Laurel? Where do you come from?
Sure. I mean, life story. I don't know. I'm from Washington State originally. I've lived in Arizona since eighth grade. Not a great time to move kids, I will say. But yeah, I've been here since eighth grade. And I was in the corporate world for a while. And I would say really it took a long time for me to find my place. My dad was a business owner. But back in those days, like women weren't, that just wasn't a path. Like I wish that I had found entrepreneurship a lot younger. I'm really talking about that with my three girls quite a bit. My 10-year-old has a business.
Love
um,
it.
yeah. And so I want to encourage that because I really believe in when you can control your time, your schedule, things like that. If you can handle all the stress that comes with it, I love it. And I love solving problems. So I was in the corporate world and I was making a lot of money and I managed about 220 employees and I was really unhappy. So it was in janitorial was my industry, and nobody is thanking you when the trashes get emptied. I will say that. So I would wake up to just chaos, like employee call outs, people pissed off all the time. And I would be out doing my building startups at night and it was just very difficult. And so my husband actually had the idea. It was like, you're running a P&L, you're managing all these people. Why don't we buy a business? And so we looked at a bunch of different stuff. I almost bought a vacuum shop. We looked at like a nuts and bolts tire business. And I remember coming home and he said, I found it. And he found a small gym and it was cash flowing about $100,000, which now you find out after the fact, no, it's not.
Right, right,
They were
yeah,
just making the books look good, whatever. But
sure.
so I bought this small independent studio and with the intention of just running it semi-absentee because I was so burnt out. My daughter was like a year old at the time or something like that. And that was the intention. And I got in there about a week and I started seeing all the things I wanted to do, all the opportunities. And so that was kind of my first like entrepreneurial
When was that time
opportunity.
frame wise? How many years
I
ago?
bought the gym in 2017. And I really have to thank my first boss, Ryan Stark, who owned Orange Commercial Cleaning, because he wanted people who would question him. He wanted people that had ideas. I didn't sell shit for 6 months, nothing. And so it was a small little cleaning company, and he wanted to sell like the big office buildings. And so we didn't know how to get the customer, where to find them, like any of that stuff. So I think when we're talking about community-based marketing, that was really my first experience with doing that. I had to sell something and I had no idea where to find the people or how to do it. And so, if I think about sort of like those lessons that have helped me in what I'm doing with Alloy was it's all about connections. So one of the first things I did was find people that I knew were in those industries. um, landscaping. I knew somebody that did like commercial landscaping. And so I took him to lunch. I picked his brain. He gave me a couple of really good books. The Ultimate Sales Machine. I don't know if you've read that one.
Yeah, I have.
Yep. The idea of the Dream 100, like who are your Dream 100 clientele? We used that. And that was one of the things that made us really, really successful. I built my division to about $4 million in revenue. And I mean, we were zero. We had none of these customers, but it
Right.
took me 6 months of just building relationships with people, sitting on committees, joining associations, bringing cookies and coffee to people, to happy hours, all that stuff, with no return right away.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then around the 6-8 month mark, the RFPs just started coming in, and we won our first $1 million janitorial contract. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm onto something here. Like people
Hmm.
trust me now. So I think people buy from people they know, like, and trust, period. And that has been what has served me well in my corporate career. And then in my building my first studio as well. It's all about relationships.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that's perfect segue, actually. That's something that obviously from afar we see you doing with Alloy, and you do a really good job of it. So maybe just define what we're talking about today. Like to you, what is community-based marketing? A lot of it is business to business. How do you choose those businesses? What does that look like? What's the purpose? And then we can get into the nuts and bolts later of like what you actually do, like some tactical things as well. But just at a high level, like what's community-based marketing?
I would say community-based marketing is relationship marketing. Like in its simplest high level form, it is choosing those strategic partnerships and those relationships that you want to align yourself with. And that means, do the brands align? Like if Alloy is a premium service, I'm maybe not going to align myself with, like, I mean, this sounds bad, but maybe not a Massage Envy. That may not be the best
Right.
partner, or a one-off something. You know what I mean? I'm trying to
Sure.
think of an example, but the brands have to be premium brands if that's the clientele we're going towards. And then, do I like these people? I'm looking for, do I like these people as human beings? Do they have shared values? Are they invested with me? And so you're not always going to get the right ones. There's been some people that I've started to build relationships with, and they're just takers. They're not
Right.
uh, they're not participating. They don't show up to the meetings. They don't show up to the events. And those people are going to weed themselves out. But those are the things I'm looking for. Do I like these people? Do they align with the brand? And with the intention of, how do we build a business that is self-sustaining, where all of the businesses that we are working with are going to cross refer to each other, and we build this ecosystem that works without relying on paid ads. So that's the intention. We need paid ads initially, but how do we build the sustainability of this business long term? So long term picture, 5-10 years from now, we have to lay that groundwork now. And it's a lot of work to do that the right way.
Yeah, I agree. Like when you were talking about, first of all, identifying the right business, we always say just find a business with a like clientele, meaning
Mhm.
like where do your customers of your current open facility, as an example, if you had that, where do they shop? What other products and services do they partake in? And then those are typically really easy, obvious, people to partner with. To your point, they're not all home runs. Some are better than others, but you just have to get out there and, go through some stinkers, right, to get to some good ones. But when you have good ones, to your point, something we also coach, I'm really glad you touched on it, is I think community-based marketing is a skill that can be developed, right? You mentioned that earlier. Um, and it's a skill that while you're, say, in a pre-sale, digital can be wildly effective, right? But as one of our franchisees said, don't get drunk on digital. And what they meant were like simply, look, don't just rely on digital, because to your point, once the dust settles from the pre-sale and you're on your 20-mile march of your business forever, what's really going to feed the business is that community-based marketing. And yes, there's some work on the front end, but it's just to your point earlier about taking 6 months to sow seeds, right? To find
Mhm.
these big corporate accounts in your cleaning business role. Very similar here. You may not have this massive influx of customers initially, but it's the type of marketing that for free, essentially, once the relationship established, can feed your business certainly into, to your point, years 3, 5, 7, 10, whatever that may be. So, um,
Absolutely. And I would also say too that your strategy with your ad campaigns, with your agency that you're working with, that has to be driven by you. We can't be lazy and say, throw up a picture of, a stock image of someone in Alloy and the leads are just going to come rolling in. I think people get lazy with their advertising. And so when you have these really good community partners, you can do more creative stuff. You can do value
Right.
stacks, you can do events, and then your ad agency has things to work with, they're creative, that are outside of the box than everybody just running free session, free week, that kind of stuff,
Right.
being all day long. Like people are just desensitized to all of it. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, especially post pre-sale. Like typically pre-sale, the leads are hot and heavy, and then after that, it just sort of like any campaign gets tired. The leads get more expensive. They're less frequent or
Yep.
less volume. So it's like, all right, if you don't have any other faucets to turn on or turn one up, turn one down, it's like your marketing just comes to a screeching halt. So you definitely need to build the skill of community-based marketing. Can you
Yeah.
share some specific businesses that have worked that you've worked well with, and kind of how that, like, how did you approach them? What did the structure of the partnership look like? Do you mind sharing one or two of those?
Sure. I mean, really, I think for Alloy, it really can be so many things. I have a physical therapist, a high-end salon, a chiropractor, a nail salon, an esthetician, like a recovery place, spray tanning, a dentist. There's like 3 or 4 other ones. I have probably
Love it.
12.
Love it.
Mhm.
So can you pick out one of those campaigns that's been successful and kind of what you did, like what the structure of it was?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's been so many things that we've done, but I would say first, the approach is you have to go in as like with a giver mentality. When you're opening a new business, obviously there's a lot we need from them. Like we need we need their social media following, their client list, their email list. Like we need a lot. So how do you go in and talk to these people with really like a service mentality of like, hey, we're going to be very successful. We are going to be a very premium brand, and going in with this level of confidence is so important. Otherwise, like, why would they align themselves with you, the new guy who has no clients, no nothing, whatever? So I think your confidence as the business owner of going in there and establishing those relationships is really important. Number one, because you're selling them a vision of what it's going to be. It's not there yet.
Right.
One of the things that we just recently did that it's testing a lot of things and seeing what hits and what doesn't, and then looking at it after the fact and saying, okay, well, how could we have done this differently? I'm sure you've heard a lot of uh probably some franchisees say, oh, well, we tried that and it didn't work. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Like, here's the
100%.
play, asking
Yeah.
for referrals or whatever. Well, we've tried that and it didn't work. And to that, I would be like, well, like your delivery, your tone, your confidence, your like, how did you lay out the campaign? Like, what were the steps involved? And I'm saying all this from personal experience of messing it up a lot,
Sure.
like, oh, we're going to do this thing, but I didn't plan out, okay, we need to put 2 posts a week. We need to send out 2 emails. We need to tag all of our partners. We need to, like, there's all these steps that you have to do to make sure that it's like the execution is done well. So I would
Right.
say that's something kind of important to
Yeah, it's
know.
sort of like the same thing done half-heartedly versus, whether it's your
Yeah.
point, whether it's in your conviction or the materials you bring or the level that you go. And we've got some playbooks in guides as well, but like doing it well versus just doing it. We do hear quite often like, oh, I tried it, and I approached this one business, they didn't want to work with me. And then I would usually follow up with like, well, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do
Yeah.
this? It's like, well, no, I just walked in, talked to somebody, and it's
I
like,
walked in, brought
okay.
my pamphlets, talked
Yeah,
about
I
me
gave
the
them the
whole time.
flyers. I don't understand why I'm not getting customers, right? But I think
Exactly.
it, so one of those, like, do you typically set up a hook for those customers, like a special offer, or is it really just about building the relationship with those businesses?
So the first, like, I'll start kind of at the beginning. When I first go into the business, I don't bring anything. I don't bring anything about me. I just go in there and I look professional. I'm not wearing gym clothes. I look more like a professional. I'll wear like something more high end. Like I'll have my makeup and my hair done. Like I'm going to look nice when I come in there because I want to present myself well. And then, I will do research ahead of time before I'm going into any of these businesses. Do they have a social media following? Do they have good reviews? Who am I asking for? So I'm not just like, is a manager there? Like, is so and so there? And who
Right.
I'm
Right.
asking for?
Right.
Um, and I'll go in there. I like to go in person, not call, because I think it's harder for people to tell you no in person, number one. And number two, like generally they think there's an agenda when you're calling. It's like, oh, you're trying to sell me something.
Down
So
for dollars. Yeah.
yeah, so I would come in and just, say something to the extent of, hi, if you were the business owner or what the manager, Rick, my name's Laurel. I'm opening a new gym in a few months here, and I just wanted to get out and meet my neighbors. I saw you guys have excellent reviews online. I think we would have a really similar, like a more of a premium clientele. And I know how hard it is sometimes to get customers and marketing expense and all of that. And I would just really love to support you and your business. I think we could really add value to each other. Would you be open to, could I buy you a cup of coffee and we could just kind of talk? I'd love to get to know you a little bit more, learn more about your business and how I can help you. And so that would be like the intro.
Yep.
Um, and then I did a social media reel for all of my community partners. So I know some people are better at that than others. So I wanted to take that completely off of their plate. So I put together a reel. It was like a tour of their space, made it look really good. It always started with me and the business owner kind of waving. So it wouldn't be like, who's this random person on my page? They would see a face they recognize and a face they don't recognize. And
Right.
then something about, community partnership or shop local or something. So that
Right.
was a post we did every week for probably 12 weeks leading up to pre-sale, where these are our partners,
Right.
and then
Well,
you
and
can
they
put that
love
as a
that too.
highlight.
Anytime you give them some shine, they're going to reciprocate. Right.
Yeah, so it would be set up as a collaborator post. It would show up on both people's pages. So that's how we got some of our initial followers, where it would show up on their page and then people would follow us.
Right.
Yeah, so that was kind of the step one. And then I set up, I think where a lot of this falls flat is there's not that recurring. You do all the work up front, and then there's not that recurring, like, what are we doing
Right.
ongoing. So I set up a monthly meeting with, we called ourselves the Scottsdale Wellness Collective. We set up a meeting for an hour once a month, and we plan out the next kind of 3 months. And what are we going to do the next month? So
So you get all of the partners together once a month in the
that's right.
collective.
Yeah.
Did you set that up?
I set it up. I put an agenda together. I send out the calendar invite. I run the meeting. So I do a lot of the work because
Yeah. Well,
if I
that's what I'm
don't,
trying to get to is, we have playbooks for cross promos, and I'm like, be prepared to do the work for your side and their side. It's not hard to do, and once you do it, it's a bit of a rinse and repeat, right, with a different message around the business and what they do. But a lot of the structure is the same. So once you have
right,
it nailed, and to your point, you land on the flow that works. You can just rinse and repeat, right?
right, right. So one thing we did just recently is you can get like a digital picture frame on
Hmm.
Amazon, and then everybody can just create one little graphic of whatever their promo is. So if you get 10% off or you get whatever, you just have that going. And then anytime they have a new promo or they have an event going on or whatever, they could just email everybody out a little slide or whatever. And it's very easy to just upload that in. You don't have to have flyers printed and do all of that. So that's
Right.
the thing that we've changed to make things a little bit easier. If you are doing an event or things like that, I have a print person in my BNI group where at the beginning of the month we do our marketing meeting internally, and that's what we're doing. Okay, what events do we have coming up?
Right.
And we're getting that stuff to print early so then I can drop that off at front desks everywhere, and I've got, let's say, a month for those things to be marketed to all those partners too.
Yeah, and I mean, like what I hear is you need to plan. Like we provide you guys with a marketing calendar. Normally if someone is filling that out, they're doing pretty well. Like if you just looked at like ultimate performance, which for us would be like, what's top line revenue? Compare that to these type of playbooks. Normally those folks are doing pretty well if they're running a structured marketing calendar because they're thinking about what's next. If you don't run the calendar, to your point, if you don't have the set meeting, whatever the mechanism is, all of a sudden it's on you and you're like, oh my gosh, it's Easter. We missed the chance to do this fun promo we were thinking about. So you really have to be thinking ahead, like 6 weeks or so.
100%.
Yeah, to get it done. So you have to be organized. And we provide all that for you guys as well. I know that that's something you did on your own. By the
Yeah.
way, what you didn't mention in your initial who you are story, which I forgot to bring up as well. And I think it speaks volumes to you, is that little gym that you bought, you really turned that thing around and turned it into something special. And then
Yeah.
you were able to then sell it to your team, right? A couple of people on your team that were working there, which is always an awesome story if you can do that. So you're
It
giving,
was.
you're exiting the business successfully. You're giving these people who have helped you build it the opportunity to become owners. And I don't know, I thought it was really a really cool way to do it, and it allowed you also to, okay, that's gone. Now you can fully focus on these multiple units that you're going to do with Alloy. But
Yeah.
I think we forgot to mention that. But like anytime somebody can build and successfully exit a business, I think it's worth talking about. So props to
Yeah.
you for that.
Thank you. And it really was. It was such a very like bittersweet, but I think it still relates to all the things that we're talking about right now. It is all about relationships, all about relationships. That team knew that first and foremost, I cared about them. I cared about them and they mattered. They mattered in my business. I cared about their future and who they are as people. And I think that's why, they could have acted out of integrity. I was really out of the business. I was, you know, we almost closed during COVID and that it turned around and was doing about 70,000 a month there at the end consistently and super profitable. And my two guys, I mean, they were running it. I led team
Right.
meeting, all the systems were in place. And I think they came to me and wanted to buy it because they had the confidence that everything was running so well, so it was really just like best case scenario. I've met with them once after I sold it, one time to show them how to run payroll. And
Right.
then we had a couple meetings set up and they're like, you know what, I think we're good. I'm like, oh, like, that's the best thing ever.
I know. I know. It's funny. My dad sold his business a long time ago. And once the guys got a hold of it, like he never heard from him again. And it was one of those things where he was paid, obviously, but he was a little bit like, well, hey, if you guys need me, because he wasn't you. He was fully retired. So he was kind of a little bit bored. And they're like, no, we've got it. He's like, no, I can get on a call with you guys. They're like, no, we've got it. I
I
think
had the same feeling. You're like, wait, you don't need me anymore. And
right.
but
Exactly.
it's
Exactly. It's
like
like, what?
that's what you want. And I had a different experience leaving the cleaning company. I found
Hmm.
out they lost almost half the business. Everybody quit. So it was really a testament to I wanted to build something at TriFit that did not rely on me. It was like it was me because it was my values and my like how I cared about the people and the community we built, but it didn't rely on me to hold it together. And so, I've done that both ways and I wanted to build something that was sustainable without me, and
Yep.
that's kind of an ego piece to that too. It's like we want it to
Sure.
all be us when really if we have great systems and we have great people that run the systems, you become less relevant. And sometimes I
Yeah.
think entrepreneurs, they need that from like an ego place. And I kind of used to be one of them.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to admit that, but I'm glad that you did. That's part of growth, I think, as a leader. I mean, a lot of people will say I'm speaking to a group of trainers. They're like, I want to do what you're doing someday. I'm like, do you really? Because I really don't spend much time working on the fun things like, working with clients. I mean, obviously, right? So at the
Yeah.
pace that we're growing, I'm working on legal and marketing and franchising. And is a
Fun.
business in and of itself, right? So
Yes.
I miss getting to deal with those clients. So selfishly, it would be easy for me to stay small and continue to receive whatever I was getting, for my ego, if you will, around what the business did and the customers thanking me and all that. And so, but you do have to outgrow that because the greater good, to your point, is you scaled the business, you changed more lives, you literally changed the lives of your people, of your team, giving them an opportunity to become entrepreneurs. They get to model that by watching you and how you grew. So
Yes.
it sounds funny to be like a sacrifice, to grow a larger business, but in some ways it is because you'll end up doing things that maybe aren't the most fun things to do in the business. Elon Musk described it perfectly. He's like, being an entrepreneur is like staring into the abyss while eating glass. And the person was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, staring into the abyss is like the chances of a business, especially he's in the tech sector. So it's a different ballgame than what we do. But, the chances of it surviving is pretty low. He's like 1% chance. So you're staring into the abyss, just hoping it works. And when you're the head of the company, you only get the hardest problems escalated to you because hopefully you've empowered your team. You have SOPs in place. They can solve problems on their own. So if you're getting a problem escalated to you, it's usually not fun to deal with. And he's like, that's the eating glass, as you spend most of your days solving big problems that you really don't want to be dealing with because they're he described it in his accent, of course, the shittest problems, but it's like the
Yeah.
worst problem to get escalated to you. So meanwhile, you're clinging onto this faith that the thing is going to work, and also solving problems that are not that fun to solve. Right? I was like, that's perfect description in a lot of ways. But
That's
again,
very
there's growth in that, but you are going to lose some of the fun of again putting your hands on the clients as an example.
There's very I'm definitely, I would say that is definitely where I'm at in my kind of entrepreneurial journey, is like I know the things that I'm really good at, and I can stay small and continue to be the person that does all of that. Like I know I can sell. I know I can do this community stuff, but how do I impact more people? And that comes back to like taking a step back and what is my vision of what I really want to build here? And I believe, and I'm sure you're going to get into like why Alloy. So segueing a little bit, but
Yeah, we can go there now. I've got more questions about the psychology of this community-based marketing, which I think
sure.
is going to be really good. But yeah, why would someone that's built a successful gym and exited it and it's proven they can do it completely on their own, why Alloy?
Well, I think part of it is a lot of the things that you are doing in Alloy, I was already doing.
Right.
One of our core values was give a shit. We had a give a shit budget that we would spend on the clients. That's surprisingly personal. We would
Yeah.
do that. The core values of Alloy, sometimes when you're involved in a franchise, you're like, okay, well, these are the values, whatever.
Right.
Like those are my values. Like it's me.
Yes.
So I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I loved you. I heard you speak, and I felt like I'm listening to myself talk, like all the things you're saying. I'm like, yes, like that all felt very aligned. And I think just on a personal note, again, this is not like easy for me to admit, but I am an entrepreneur through and through. And sometimes we can get in our own way. I've heard Cameron Harold, he's a friend of mine, known him a long time. I know you know him. And he said entrepreneurs like a dragon on a leash, like
Right.
we can kind of get in our own way if we allow all the ideas, all the crazy. I went and started a whole nother company in corporate wellness while I had my gym. I was like, I know how to speak the corporate language. I can help more people if I do this. I started a whole new business for like 3 years and was successful at it. Had like 11 corporate clients, whatever, right before COVID. Was interviewed on podcasts for like, how are you doing this? How are you getting these customers? But it deviated from my core business. What could I have done if I just would have like focused
Focused. Yeah.
on what I was doing? And then COVID happened. And it was like, well, people weren't spending $50,000 on a wellness program. That budget just
Right. Right.
went away, and so, I think that is what attracted me to Alloy. It's like I really believe in it. I believe in the programming and how we help people. The small communities I don't think exist in our world anymore. That's what's missing. People drive in their garage, they close the door, they don't talk to their neighbors, they don't barbecue on the weekends, people don't go to church anymore. Where are they getting that community? And so there's a deeper like why for me of like I think there's a lot of sad, lonely, unhealthy people in our world. And I'm like, if I'm not going to do it, if I'm not going to create these ecosystems of connection in communities, like where is it going to come from? And I believe I
Right.
can do that. So that's the vision. That's the bigger why for me. And I think finding people, finding teams that are super passionate and committed to that. I'm very, very selective about the people. I've made mistakes in hires, and every time I come back to that was why they didn't have that thing that I have,
Right.
of like why they're in it and why they want to do this. And so, that's why I think Alloy gives me enough structure to where I don't deviate too much.
Discipline. Right.
Yeah, and
Guardrails.
I can use my creativity and ingenuity in things like this that we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
That's where I can add the value and I can be that out of the box person, but it kind of keeps the guardrails up a little bit.
Yeah, love it. And to be able to admit that too is a mature entrepreneur, I would say, because I'm the same way. It's like, look, I hire really smart people. I always joke about like one of the challenges of being CEO is like admitting that you're the dumbest person in the building because you are hiring people that are much better at their role. Like if I'm the best person in our company at bundling our tech, it's like we're in trouble, right? So you end up knowing less and less, but also becoming more, your decisions are fewer and far between. They're more impactful. But it is like a death of your ego, right? To
When
hire
I
people
remember,
smarter than you, get out of their
I
way.
listened to your COO on one of the podcasts, and just hearing her talk about you, like, do not bring me any more ideas. Do not bring me any more. We're done. We're not doing that. And so
Yes.
it's me. And, thank God I married a man who he kind of does that to me. Like I'm the
Yeah, he's awesome.
Ferrari with no brakes, and he's
All
a little
gas and no
brakes.
brakes.
He's a
Right,
little bit of the
right.
brakes. Like, let's just think about this for a second.
2
So,
seconds. Just think.
so you need to
Well,
have both. Yeah.
let's all none of this works, Laurel, without the proper mindset. It sounds woo-woo, but I will tell you that the fear of rejection. So say, okay, here's what we're talking about. It's community-based marketing. Great. You mentioned you go into the business, you talk to people, you dress nice when you do it. You want to look like a professional. There's all these things, right? And to someone that is scared of rejection, it can be a really tall task to get them out in the community. And to your point, they might run into some headwinds with a couple of people saying no, which in your experience, is 100% fine because it's just a law of averages. You just keep going, which not everyone's going to say no, right? But what would you say, or what did you do to work on your mindset to get yourself to a point where you were comfortable and confident walking into a business and saying, "Hi, I'm Laurel, is Rick here," and then doing what you described earlier? Was that ever a struggle for you? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think my let's say journey to get to the person I am today, where I am today, has been 10 years in the making, not to discourage anyone, but I think that ability to be self-aware and introspective and not just put your head in the sand and like really to challenge yourself on like what's going on here for me, like mentally, emotionally, in these situations. And I'll say kind of the first thing was when I was doing sales at TriFit, I couldn't get myself to make calls. I hated it. I hated it. I had a couple people be really mean, tell me no. I would cry. I absolutely hated it. Like that feeling of just, it's personal. It feels so personal. And I think, thank God, I am just stubborn and bullheaded enough and competitive enough. I wanted to win so bad that I just had to get over it. I just forced myself to do it anyway. And the more I did it, it was like if you don't have the skill set, you don't have the confidence in what it is that you're doing. Well, how do you get the confidence? You have to practice the skill set in order
Right.
to get the confidence. And if we just embrace the fact, I'm going to suck at this in the beginning, people will ask me, "You're so good on camera for like social." Same thing. I took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos of myself, hated it, cringe, post anyway. I just did it. I just forced myself to do it. So I don't know what that is, that ability to just feel so uncomfortable with something and then do it anyway. So that's kind of in my earlier years with social media or sales calls and things like that. And most recently was I remember this is not easy for me to say and everybody hear it too, but I really I do it with the intention of I want to help other people get better. I remember I was out flyering cars. We fired our ad agency a month after pre-sale. We're getting just a bunch of spam leads. So spending a ton of money and like 5 out of 6 were spam. And so I'm like, this is not working. And what am I going to do? Like, am I going to let myself go out of business? No, that's not going to happen. I have to figure this out. And so I was out flyering cars in a parking lot. I'm putting the things on the cars. And I said, I'm going to go talk. I'm going to hand this pass to 20 people. I'm going to walk up to 20 strangers. And I was in the parking lot of like a pickleball and a Hobby Lobby. And I got in my car and I went home. And I was so freaking mad at myself. I felt like the biggest loser. I'm like, I couldn't get myself to do it. And I'm like, I have to figure this out. And so I went home, I researched what are the best books on rejection. And one book was called Rejection Proof. That was like one of the top rated ones. I read it in a weekend. I was like, I don't have the luxury of time of a month of this. Like, I read it in one weekend and it completely changed my perspective.
What was the name of it one more time for the
Rejection.
listeners? Rejection Proof. Okay.
Yes. And the man was basically a very successful executive kind of thing, but he always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but he was so scared of like rejection, and had an idea. Someone told him it was stupid. He didn't try it. And he just played small his whole life because he wasn't willing to put himself out there. And so he had 100 rejection days. He was going to go out 100 times and get people to say no to him. And he talks about his whole experience, like what was going on for him psychologically in these different, things. And so, yeah, I read that. And then the other part of it is I just always want to be an authentic leader. And if I'm going to ask my team to do it, I sure as shit better be willing to do it myself. And I wasn't. How am I going to ask them? We have 6 studios that we're going to be opening with Alloy. I'm going to ask all my directors to do something that I'm not willing to do. I'm not going to do that. I have to figure this out. And so I did. And I started walking up to people in the parking lot. First, Tatiana, my director at Scottsdale, we role played it a whole bunch of times over and over and over, the two of us. We role played it with our neighbor and he gave us some feedback. He's like, you got to get to the point faster. If you just walk up to a stranger, what are you doing? Like, why are
Right.
you here? They're not going to talk to you for 10 minutes. And so we got some feedback from him and we just went, okay, we're going to go do it. And I did it first as a leader. And I think out of 10 people, like 9 of them all took my flyer. I booked one on the spot. And I'm like, I've made this up in my head. Like it was me
Wait,
creating
I'm still alive. No one hates me.
this,
Right.
And then T did it and she handed it out. She asked like 13 people and only 2 took hers. And it was hard. It was hard for her, but she hadn't read the book first.
Right. Right. Well, and that's your
Reading it right
opportunity to
now.
go, okay, well, good that you're out there. And you've probably heard there's a million books written about this around sales where, maybe the law of averages, if you're cold calling people, which we don't, but let's say that you're in that business and for every 99 no's, you get a yes. And so one way that they would take the negative sort of persona, or feeling that you get, that negative feeling from a rejection, and they make that the goal. So like your goal today is to get 99 no's. And so then it changes the psychology of a rejection into like yeah, that's my 4th one. That's my 5th one. And I know the goal is not to get no's, but if in that business, if 1 out of 100 is good, then like get your 99 no's kind of idea. Right. So I just thought it was a creative way also to reframe rejection or losing, if you will, in a mere quote, of course, into something positive, because you aren't going to get them all. And so for T to get her 2 of 13, it's still 2, right? And she learned some, and you probably were able to give her some feedback, and she could download what her fears were, or maybe where she thought it went sideways. But that's the way you do it. Like, you don't work it all out in the starting blocks, right? You start the race, then you figure it out as you go. But it's about the doing, not the planning and the thinking. It takes both, but the real magic is in the doing. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I would say whatever it is that motivates you. When I was early on in my sales career and it was about making sales calls, the idea of making 50 calls felt very overwhelming to me. So I thought if I can be better on my calls, my goal is I need to book 2 people. If I only have to make 2 calls and I book 2 people, I'm done. If I have to make 100 calls to book 2 people, that's what I'm doing. So it was about the result. If I can be better. And so that changed. Okay, how do I walk up to this person? What do I say to them? Am I
Right.
smiling? Am I confident? I had one guy walked up to him and I'm like, hey. And he's like, do I know you? And I'm like, not yet. And I'm just like, stupid and,
Right.
whatever. Like, I just make it silly. Like, if I'm a fun, nice person, most likely they're going to be a fun, nice person. If they're kind of an a-hole, well, but most people
Not
aren't.
probably not a great fit anyway.
Most
Right.
people aren't. If you are a
Right.
normal, nice human being, you know.
Yep. 100%. Well, yeah, that's key. And I don't know. It's really interesting. I mean, the mindset of a learner's mentality, accepting the fact that you're not going to be good at it at the start, looking at failures as not negatives, but positive, maybe even a positive metric, if you look at it that way. That's a lot to be learned there. And so for anybody listening, Rejection Proof, right? First read. Is there any other books or any other resources that you want to tell people about that you used?
I mean, I'm reading all the time. I try to read, a book-ish every week or two. But I do it a little bit differently. I know, my partner, Mike Arcee, really well. And
Yep.
he actually, I stole this from him. I used to just read and just consume all the time. And then I wasn't taking a lot of action. And so now I've changed that. I read what I need to learn. So
Same.
right now, my entire month, I'm reading all about leadership. Every podcast I'm listening to is on leadership. Every book I'm reading is on leadership. I'm journaling on how did I show up? Like, was I prepared to the meetings? How am I supporting my team? Like, that's what I need to learn right now. Not being the doer, but how do I lead my team and help them, help elevate them? So I would say don't read just to read, but read what it is you need to learn.
Yeah, I agree. I would rather read one really good book and then implement it, right? Than just to read a bunch. I read 40 books this year. It's like, great. I probably don't remember half of what I read and none
Yeah.
of it was implemented. I'd rather read two and then really take, to your point, seek out the books that fill the gaps that I have, right? And
One
then
thing I would
implement
say,
the strategy. Yeah, go ahead.
Average Sucks. Michael Bernoff, Average Sucks. That's a really great one. You could read that in a weekend, but it really cuts to the core of why do we not, as in general, ever accomplish or step into our greatness of all the things we have the potential to do? Why do we not do that? And he talks about the psychology of this box that we create for ourselves with our beliefs, the people in our life, all of that, our habits. And Tatiana, my director, she read that and she goes, I'm so pissed off. I'm so mad. Like, she's like, I see it. Like, I see all of the self-sabotaging behaviors and the things. And now she's aware. Like the flashlight has been shined on her. She sees all of it. And now she
Right.
actually wants to make the changes and the uncomfortable things. It's going to be uncomfortable when we want to grow. So,
Yeah. And you turned her onto that book. Is that correct?
yeah.
What a good leader. I love it. I love it. Well, look, I got way too excited when we jumped off the call the call jumped off and I didn't do a dad joke. So can we go back and do one now? Do you still have yours?
Gosh, yeah, I'm not a good. My team at TriFit said, Laurel, you're not funny. You're inspiring, and I'm funny when I'm not trying to be. When I try to be, I'm not funny. So I
Well,
use
dad
Google
jokes inherently aren't
ChatGPT.
funny. Go for it.
So I found this one. I thought this was pretty funny. I told my wife she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She looked surprised.
Come on, that's great. I love it. I love it. Oh, what is this? I'm reading mine as well as how lame it is this morning. Um, Last night I accidentally super glued my thumb and my index finger together. It'll be okay for a while. That's so bad.
That's
So
good.
bad. Well, look, I really appreciate having you on. Final question. If you were gun to head forced to sing karaoke, what would your song be and why?
I mean, I'm a singer, so
Are you?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
I led the worship at my church for years.
All right. Well, then, if that's the case, that's too easy. If you could domesticate any wild animal, what animal would you domesticate?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm kind of fascinated by the lion. Have you ever seen those the lion videos where they're just rolling around with the guy, or you see him running at the person?
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna die! Like it's your life's over, and then they hug, and
So
cuddle.
that's what you want, like hugging lion that you can call when you get home from work and you have a bad day, and like your big lion will run hug you. That
I
would be a
don't
good
know.
one.
I think
Like a lot of people say that. Like, of course, everybody would love to have a domesticated lion around the house. That would be pretty cool. Oh,
I did realize that I didn't share with you. You asked what marketing thing has been the most successful. Do you want me to?
yes.
Because we kind of talked about a bunch of different things, but one specific thing that I know I will continue to do because it was really effective. We have a nail salon right next to us, so this could work with a nail salon or a hair salon. Anything where they see a high volume of people day to day. But we did a raffle prize, so it was me 2 weeks of free personal training, a free pedicure, or maybe a manicure and a pedicure, and then we had an esthetician. So they did a free facial. So it was like a $350 raffle package. And we did 2 reels where we put together and we were getting our nails done and we were just, had little snippets of a facial, people working out, put a reel together. And we said we're doing 10% off all day or 15% off all day at the nail salon. So more business coming to her. And then we're doing a raffle giveaway. So everybody who comes in that day gets 15% off and they'll get entered into a raffle. So the esthetician and I had a table set up there. They see probably 50 people in a day. And we set up a table and I literally went up to people as they were getting pedicures or nails done. And same thing, I just talked to them. Hey, my name is Laurel. I own the gym next door. We're doing a big raffle giveaway. I just wanted to make sure you knew about it. I think I booked 2 on the spot. I got 6 new members from that campaign.
Nice.
Cost me. Oh, so afterwards, so everybody got a raffle ticket. When they paid, they got a raffle ticket. She shared the list with us. And I called every single one of those people and said, guess what? We had so many people there. I was only going to do 1 giveaway. I'm giving away 5 now. And you were one of them. You won 2 free weeks.
Sure. Amazing.
So that was the play. And we got 6 members from that. It cost me literally like nothing. No ad spend, nothing.
Right. It just costs you the emotional development to be able to walk over there and talk to people getting a pedicure, which again, once you do it, you just have to do it. Right. And if you do it once and it doesn't work, you just keep going. I mean, that's overwhelmingly what I heard you say today, but it doesn't happen by accident. It's intentional. And it's great, I think, for someone who makes it look really easy, which is what you do, to hear that you have literally been paralyzed in a parking lot in a car and driven away in shame and not been able to do it. I think that should be encouraging to people to hear that you could be literally in that state and end up being where you are now if you're willing to do the work and willing to learn.
And I think just committed to your why. It has to matter to you. It really has to matter. It does to me,
I love it. Well, look, how can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you?
You can follow us on Instagram, Alloy Scottsdale Greyhawk. You can send me a message in there, connect with me on LinkedIn. And happy to help. If anyone has any questions on this, they want to set up a quick Zoom or a phone call or something, happy to offer any additional insights and some of the specific tactical things that we do. Happy to share those.
I appreciate that. Well, listen, Laurel, you're a rock star. We're proud to have you in the brand. I love what you're doing organically with community marketing. You're setting the standard for everyone. So thank you for that. I look forward to developing. I think we have studio number 2 looking at real estate already. So I look forward to doing all 6 and maybe more. Who knows? With that mindset of yours and that growth mindset, it's like maybe you'll be that 50 studio owner, at some point. But
we'll tell my husband that I have a heart attack, but that's where my head's going.
All gas, no brakes. So we're not on a good call for any limiting for anyone to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, nah. There's no whoa, whoa. Oh, exactly. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Again, we're proud to have you in the brand and just keep doing you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Cheers.